Alright, let's talk about Bluey Day, the wonderful event in which a restaurant chain in the Nevada, Las Vegas, Los Angeles area hosted a day celebrating Bluey, where you can watch Bluey, get your face painted, different fun games, and a Bluey giveaway, and especially, you get to meet Bluey and the friends. But what if I told you that this Bluey Day ended up being a Bluey Doomsday? That's what they're calling it. So let's talk about it. So for a bit of context, I don't watch Bluey at all. All I really know is that they are probably one of the most beloved characters in cartoon media for kids. Not even just for kids. I know plenty of adults that love and adore Bluey. The series, the merch, the character, the dad. But besides the point, Bluey is a massively well-known icon. Everyone loves her and the family, from the young kiddos to the adults that are twice my age. The point being, it's relatively popular, and whenever I've seen Bluey tied to realistically anything, the turnout for it is immense. Whether it's something at a furry convention where Bluey or one of the fursuiters who has a Bluey cosplay fursuit shows up, the line is like around the corner. I'm not even joking. There was a line to meet the dad who had a fursuit of the dad at a furry convention. Pretty much whenever I've seen Bluey thrown into anything for any sort of collaboration or event or some special day, the turnout is immense. It's always a lot bigger than people imagine it to be. Like hundreds of thousands of families, and kids especially, want to see Bluey. And who can blame them? I mean, the cute little dog has an accent and gives you life lessons that I didn't even get when I was a kid, so it's pretty good. So with that in mind, early this month, there was an event that was held by a restaurant known as the Dirt Dog, or rather the franchise, the chain, with a very cutesy advertisement, which, let me just say, I dig the Bada Boom font. I was one of those that used that a lot in my thumbnails. So the announcement, I believe, came from Dirt Dog's Facebook and or Instagram page, in which it reads, Bluey Day. Watch Bluey all afternoon. Face painting, games, and Bluey giveaway. Meet Bluey and friends. Sweet treats. May 11th, 2024, 11 p.m. to 3 p.m. So all in all, a pretty cutesy little event. And it doesn't say that you need to pay for entry. It's just one of these events where you show up and it's kind of there to sort of bring families in. Now, supposedly the restaurant was expecting, I believe, around a few dozen families or so. But little do they know that hundreds of thousands of people would be showing up to meet Bluey. And you know, when you're thinking, oh, we get to meet Bluey and friends. What, there's someone in a Bluey costume? I'm sure there are some very cheap ones that you can get out there that they'd have people going around in costumes saying hi to the families and kids. It wasn't that. Instead, it was the employees dressed up in Bluey onesies. You know those little onesie costumes that you can get from like Spirit Halloween or like Party City? Yeah, it was one of those. And the infamous picture associated with it, which will never not crack me up, is whenever it's mentioned, you get to meet Bluey, and you see this picture. Oh my god. I mean, to be fair, with a free event, and this is not, you know, me throwing shade at the restaurant or anything. When you look at or think about a free event like that, a free event, you're not even paying for entry. Like, this kind of really makes sense. I feel bad for the guy who's doing his absolute best, but goddamn, that is funny. And supposedly that ended up ruining a lot of people's days. Like, kids were crying hysterically. Let me actually see what the article has to say. There's probably a bunch that has to do with this. What a waste of time. SMH, never again, wrote one disappointed customer on Dirt Dog's Facebook page. Your establishment was not located near a lot of us moms. We drove, wrote another. She continued, my son was heartbroken. I already drove 45 minutes. We love Dirt Dog, but this time, my friend, you messed up. Bad marketing, bad thinking, you really let my son down. Oh my god. Now, there were supposedly some other things that folks were there for, like some of the sweets and treats that were around, which ended up, I believe, being around like 100 or so themed dog cupcakes or something, which again, that kind of correlates to them expecting a smaller turnout for this event when it ended up being a few hundred or so, if not more, showing up. I mean, even some families were supposedly saying about the Bluey marathon on TV that they were just running episodes of Bluey while the TV was muted. So it's like you're just watching the cartoons without any audio too. I don't know, that's just a funny little touch that I thought I'd mention. So the event was pretty much compared to the Willy Wonka experience. Instead of it being Bluey Day, it was called Bluey Doomsday, and the restaurant ended up putting out an apology for it. To our Bluey families, we are truly sorry this event wasn't the expected experience. We take pride in putting on community events for you and your families to enjoy. We have staff play out host characters for an added personal touch. We're overwhelmed with the turnout to this event. We will continue to improve on our events so we can ensure nothing like this will happen in the future. We apologize to the families that miss out on what we had to offer. We hope to repair our relationship with all of you. Which, hey, apology, they're just looking to improve events like this. They weren't expecting a turnout of like hundreds of thousands of families to show up. They were expecting it to be a small little thing, which I guess goes on par for some of the events that they've hosted in the past. Supposedly they did like a Disney themed day or like an egg hunt day, probably around like Easter or something, which again, like, I don't know, my expectations for something like that are like at the bare minimum. It's free after all. And also, if they were looking to call on like some sort of Bluey day and they wanted characters, they really should have just contacted the furries. Let's be real. Have you seen the amount of Bluey themed fursuiters or Bluey themed cosplays that go around at fur cons? Literally, I'm gonna take this as an excuse to talk about Bandit the dad fursuiter who goes around cons. I love him to death. He's such a sweetheart. I got to meet him at a furry convention like a few years back, and he called me kiddo, and it made me feel really happy. And people seem to love him, so like, just call him up or something. I don't know. There are plenty of other suitors who do that as well because they just want to cosplay or put on a costume being Bluey or one of the Bluey characters. I feel like this whole Bluey Day event has the same comparison as like a pizza party day at school. This is the best way I can see it, because like when you go into it as a kid, you're like, oh, we're getting a pizza party in class, this is great, and then you get this tiny little sliver of pizza and then like maybe a little shot cup of like soda, and you're like, oh man, I was really expecting more, and then you're disappointed. But then you figure out a little bit of the story behind it and realize that the teacher paid for everything out of pocket to be able to have the pizza party, so they have to share it as such off their own money and their own paycheck. So there's that. And that's not every case for pizza parties at school, but I just wanted to set that as an example of like looking at the mindset behind it. You might think, oh, it's a big disappointment when you go to experience it, but you might not know a bit of the story behind it, which in the case of the restaurant, I feel a little bad. They kind of just went into it hoping to host some sort of like family friendly, kid friendly event to bring in people to go to their restaurant and eat their food, when in reality, a slew of people just show up strictly for Bluey. I don't know, I feel like less people looked at the actual restaurant and sort of advertisement behind it and just saw the Bluey thing and they're like, yes, let's go. And then when they don't see Bluey, it's kind of a disappointment, which is valid in that sense. But again, you got to keep in mind that it's a free event and there were plenty of other events thrown by this restaurant or restaurant chain, so you can probably draw some comparisons to those. And to be fair though, like, it wasn't false advertising. You could meet Bluey, like one of the employees dressed as Bluey. But either way, expectations for this were high, and it's very interesting to see how like kids were just in tears, in hysterics over not getting to meet Bluey. Some kids were crying, some kids were upset, crying in their parents' shoulders. How could you do that to little kids? Advertise something so fun and eventful for kids ranging from toddlers to 6, 7 years old and not actually follow through with it. It was a very upsetting moment to see so many kids, especially my daughter, just really upset, she said. The restaurant later took to social media to post an apology about the event. Regardless, this whole thing happened and people were upset about it. However, the Dirt Dog is trying to host another event, a follow-up that actually has Bluey in costume at the event. So hey, that'll be something fun to look forward to if it happens in like a few weeks or so. And if it ends up going up in flames like before, we might cover it. I don't know. But either way, that's more or less what happened with the Bluey event. And I just wanted to talk about it because it sounds neat. And I'm just going to say it once again. Just ask the furries for help. You could get, a regular Bluey costume. That'd be fine and all. But if you want to go above and beyond and have one written in the history books, ask the furries. They know what's up. There are plenty of Bluey themed fursuiters in the furry fandom that have like sort of similar cosplays or fursuits similar to like Bandit or Bluey or their brother, sister. I don't know their names. Again, I haven't seen the show. I probably should. It'd give me some really good life lessons on like family and relationships, which I definitely need that advice. But overall, this was just a neat little event that I wanted to talk about, and maybe it'll evolve into something better in the future. Who knows? I wish the restaurant the best of luck because they genuinely tried with what they had available. And that's just a lesson to keep in mind in the future. If you put Bluey on it, there's bound to be people to show up, and that's either for the better or for the worst. But on that note, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to let me know in the comments. I don't know how to do these intros anymore. It's 1 a.m. I should probably go to bed. I don't know what else to cover. I'm just gonna kind of wing it on here and see where things go. So if you enjoyed it, thank you. But that's about gonna do it for me. Have a wonderful night. Take care. Life stay jacking, and I'll see you all later. Bye.